Go ahead and get started. We'll begin with Metropolitan's General Manager, Adel Haj Khalil.
Good morning. My name is Adel Haj Khalil. I'm the General Manager of Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, working hard on providing safe, resilient water for 20 million people in Southern California. Thank you for everyone for joining us here today. And I want to thank Secretary Crawford for being here with us, with his team, Mr. Craddock, and thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate all what the state have done during the last 3 years, helping us deal with the worst drought we've seen. And now we are working together again. We appreciate the state and the governor for helping us rebuild our depleted storage and replenishing our water deficit. I want to introduce the board member from Metropolitan Water District, California, Heather Penning, our vice chair for climate action, and Jeff Armstrong from our area here, Eastern Water District. We are working in a new reality, a new normal, where every year it looks like we are seeing either a record is being broken, a record heat, a record dry, record snow, record rain. But I'll tell you, this is what we need to deal with. This is climate change that is in front of us. All of us must work together to manage this climate whiplash. I call it climate whiplash because what we need to do is work together to build a future, a resilient future for everyone, with no one left behind. Back in 2019, we saw what happened. We had wet year, followed by 3 years of heavy drought. And we were ready almost at the end of last year, not have enough water for 6 million people, our residents in the west part of our region. But we're able to get through. Nature gave us a lifeline now. And what we need to do is continue working forward on building the resilient future, building in the infrastructure that we need to do. Infrastructure of storage, conveyance, local water supply. All these things are critical to ensure that everyone has water when we need it. And that's the commitment we all have to deal with this climate whiplash, the climate change that we're facing. Metropolitan is working on developing a climate adaptation master plan for 2045 that's going to help us really set the path forward to ensure as we move forward, every region here in Southern California will have water regardless of the conditions that we're dealing with. Nearly 3 decades ago, back in 2000, Metropolitan invested almost over $2 billion in building Diamond Valley Lake that you have here behind you. And I'll tell you, if you look at that time, probably there was a lot of debate over that project. But we're so lucky that we had that kind of investment, that we had the foresight that we're asking people to do right now, is to do something like this, to really think what's the best way for us to manage the water in this new climate, in a new climate whiplash that we're dealing with. This reservoir and the inland feeder that was built with it to move water in holds about 800,000 acre feet of water, close to what we use almost in a year, for import in a year. So what we wanted to do is ensure that we have water. This reservoir helped us during the last few years match and cover the deficit that we're dealing with. It almost went down to half. And today we are using the water that we have that's available from Northern California, from the State Water Project, from the rain that we've had, to move it down here to start filling this lake, filling the reservoirs we have to ensure that we are ready, as we are probably going to see soon another dry conditions. We cannot let this opportunity go to waste. We're going to replenish our reservoirs everywhere in our region, starting with our reservoirs up in Northern California, in the Central Valley, in the local groundwater basins here, and in Diamond Valley Lake. That's critical for us to really respond and take this opportunity that we have, this lifeline that we have. 7 million people last year possibly were going to run out of water, and we put them on health and safety. And we know what it means when you run out of water. And our commitment to you is to ensure that when you turn the faucet, you'll have water. And that's the work that we're going to do for you. And that's the plan that we're working on to ensure that we have resilient, safe water for everyone with no left behind. We have also still huge deficit in our water supplies. We are replenishing the groundwater basins and our supplies, but we can't forget about the Colorado River. As you know, that system is also strained, and we're dealing with ways to manage that water supply that's diminishing. And you probably heard on the news that negotiations are underway, and we want to work together with our partners in the 7 states and the country of Mexico to ensure that we have water for the entire Southwest. To me, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. We can't let this opportunity go to waste. Nature gave us a lifeline in this face of the climate whiplash. We need to take this lifeline, replenish our resources, but continue to work and plan ahead to build the infrastructure of the future where we can capture water, store it, and replenish it. I want to also, at the end, thank our residents across Southern California for adapting a culture of conservation and not wasting water. I remember when we made the call last year to reduce the water consumption in our areas that were state water dependent areas, state water project dependent areas. They came through and they conserved over 35% of their water use. That helped us stretch the water available. I want to thank everyone for continuing the ethics of conservation, because that's critical. That's the basic foundation for us. But we need to continue working hard on building the infrastructure for the future to conserve and save water, because every drop we can conserve, every drop we can save is a drop that we can use in the future when we deal with the climate whiplash. Thank you very much. And let me introduce a great friend to Metropolitan, to Southern California, the Secretary of Natural Resources, Wade Crawford, who's been a great partner. We appreciate his leadership and the governor's leadership on this matter. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate being here and sharing some good news as it relates to water and our water supply conditions. It has been an extraordinary winter, In October, we ended the driest 3-year period on record here in California. And then during January, with those 9 atmospheric river storms, we experienced among the wettest 3 weeks in our statehood, followed by an absolute blockbuster March in terms of more rain and snow. And we are not out of the woods this winter. We are preparing for another atmospheric river storm due to hit California in the next couple of days, with other storms possible here in coming couple weeks. So our personnel, our agencies remain very focused on keeping communities safe, even as we continue to experience storms. But make no mistake, the silver lining of all of that rain and snow have been as conditions for our water supplies that are significantly improved from last fall. Currently, our Sierra Nevada snowpack is over double what it normally is. In the southern Sierra, almost triple. And that means more water into our reservoirs. It means more water flowing through our rivers to protect water quality and for the purposes of protecting fish and wildlife, and includes the ability to recharge our groundwater basins more than we have in the past. So thanks to these changing conditions, Governor Newsom on Friday announced that he and we are scaling back significantly the number of emergency actions we had been taking for drought. And that includes removing an urgent call for 15% conservation across California. It's only use that urgent call for conservation when absolutely needed. So from our perspective, it makes sense to pull it back at this point. We also removed a requirement for local water agencies to scale up their emergency drought actions, what are called level 2 of their water shortage contingency plans. Those are important ways that we can demonstrate that our situation is better than it was in the last few years, and that makes a difference in our daily lives. At the same time, we are staying focused on eliminating water waste. So certain requirements against wasteful usage of water remain in place. We're also keeping in place a series of emergency provisions that allow us to support communities that continue today to be impacted by water shortages. And that includes scores of communities across our state that literally don't have water flowing out of their taps due to a multi-year depletion of groundwater. We also know that parts of our state experience acute water shortages, including the Klamath Basin to the far north of our state, as well as the Colorado River Basin that provides water across California. So this is not a case of going back to normal, because from my perspective, there's no going back to normal. It's adjusting to a new normal. And that's the new normal of weather whiplash, of understanding we're going to have these long, hot droughts that are punctuated by very intense wet winters. And so increasingly, we need to adjust our infrastructure, our management, to capture water during wet winters like this for use during longer drought periods. The other change we need to adjust to is hotter, drier climate moving forward. Our scientists have told us that by 2040, we will lose about 10% of our water supply in an average year. We'll continue to experience drought and flood cycles, but over time, due to those hot, we'll lose about 10% of our water supply. That's snowpack that's absorbing into dry soils with thirsty plants and evaporating into warmer air. So not only do we have to make our water systems more flexible, more resilient to weather whiplash, we also have to augment our water supply. We need to capture more water supply in these big wet winters and store it underground through groundwater recharge and stormwater capture, as well as build more facilities like the one behind me, Diamond Lake, on a regional basis to help build resilience across our state. And I'm thankful that Governor Newsom and our legislature over the last few years have invested over $1 billion that's going directly to local and regional agencies like Metropolitan that are funding the projects that have been identified in communities across the state, in regions that build local reliability and drought resilience. So that $1 billion is turning into projects like the one behind me, and that's going to be so critical in the future that we now are facing down. So I appreciate the partnership with Metropolitan. I do think this is an opportunity to take a breath and thank Mother Nature for providing the snow and the water and recognizing we are in a better situation. I'll mention that has resulted in our state water project that provides water to over 27 million Californians. That's almost 3/4 of Californians. Just announced, along with the governor on Friday, that it is increasing the allocation to its water contractors, including water agencies in Southern California, increasing that allocation of 35% up to 75%. In addition, and extraordinarily, it has identified additional water called Article 21 water that is available in a limited window of time that state water contractors like Metropolitan can take from the system and store. And I believe that the water flowing behind me today is part of those water supplies that have been enabled by that Article 21 supply, as well as all the flexibility we're looking to exercise. And I'm really pleased that Ted Craddock, the Deputy Director of the Department of Water Resources, who oversees the State Water Project, is here today, and he can answer questions. So once again, I'll say thank you, leaders in Southern California. Thank you, Southern Californians. You have been heroic, not only in the last few months and years, but in the last few decades. Southern California's population has grown by 5 million people since 1990, with almost no growth in the overall water usage. And that suggests that Southern Californians continue to improve their water efficiency and conservation. And given this drier and hotter future, we're going to need that continued leadership. So under the theme of leadership, I want to introduce next the Metropolitan Board Member and Vice Chair of Climate Action, Director Heather Repenning.
Thank you so much, Secretary Crowfoot, and we are very grateful to the work you're doing. We're very grateful to our governor. Watching you, it's hard to see how you're getting around from place to place. You're all over the state right now, really working on these really tough challenges that communities across our state are facing. So we appreciate your leadership. I also want to thank our General Manager, Adel Hashkhalil, and his staff. And the talking about the extremes that we've seen, even just in this last year, it's hard to imagine, how we can build infrastructure to accommodate that. But I know that we have truly the best and the brightest people working on these issues. I want to thank as well the workers who have built facilities like this one, and who are operating our facilities. So thank you all. The developments. I also want to say that today is a very happy day, and I just want to say this is a good day, and so we're grateful for the water. But we also want to acknowledge the people and the communities who have been negatively impacted and who are still negatively impacted by the storms and the flooding that have hit our state this winter. But the developments we're highlighting today underscore the need for Met and the state to continue making investments in our water system. We need to modify existing water systems for the climate extremes we're experiencing today. The changes in weather from wet to dry require that we adapt to ensure future water reliability for Southern California and to protect our communities. On behalf of our board at the Metropolitan Water District, I just want to say that we're doing everything we can right now to save, capture, and store as much water as possible for the next dry period. But these swings are only going to become more dramatic, and we must do more to prepare. That means investing in storage, like the facility we have here today, and also in creative solutions for storage, like recharging our aquifers, as we've seen the governor do recently with a lot of creativity and flexibility. It means strengthening our water system so that we're better able to move water from one place to another to where it's needed. We're also very excited about the Pure Water Southern California project that Met is leading in partnership with the LA County Sanitation District. This project in Carson will provide about 150 million gallons of purified water per day. That's enough to serve 500,000 Southern California households. Our goal is to accelerate construction with early deliveries to begin in 2028 and full-scale production by 2032. Pure water is just part of the long-term answer. And over the next year, our board will be developing a climate adaptation master plan that will outline more projects and as well as how we can fund them while promoting affordability for the communities we serve. And as always, as the other speakers have mentioned here today, conservation must continue to be a way of life. The water that we're able to store, like putting money in your savings account, it is as a result of conservation and of sacrifice, really. And so we're grateful to the people of Southern California for everything that you've done to use water wisely, particularly those communities that were under mandated restrictions in 2022 and the early part of this year for helping to stretch our limited water supplies. But just because we're now seeing some rain, lots of rain, does not mean that we can let up. And I know that's not what everyone wants to hear, but that is reality. We must rebuild our reserves, reduce our demands in the long term to ensure we keep this water in storage for the drier days ahead. And Met is committed to helping build on our progress in conservation and to help Southern Californians replace their lawns with California-friendly and native plants, invest in rainwater capture features that take advantage of winter storms. More than 70% of water being used in Southern California is used outdoors. And the best way we can lower our water use as a region is by changing the landscape of Southern California. So if you have a lawn that you don't use, a lawn that you only walk on to mow, I encourage you to take advantage of our rebate by switching out your thirsty turf to a more sustainable, climate appropriate landscape. If it died during the drought, don't replant it. Replace it with beautiful California friendly and native plants. Those are my comments today. We really appreciate all of you for being here, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Myself and the speakers are available for any questions you have.
And there is a mic here if anybody wants to.
How many stops does the water make before it gets to this lake?
How many stops? Let me ask. Let me ask Mickey, our chief of operation, to come and provide that response. Thank you. Introduce yourself.
Hi, Mickey Chowdhury, the Chief of Operations at Metropolitan. Thanks for the question. Yeah, so if we're talking about the water that we see in the reservoir over here, that's coming from the north, from the State Water Project. It branches off into a west branch and an east branch. So this is coming off the east branch of the State Water Project through Silverwood. After it goes south of Lake Silverwood, it goes into the inland feeder, and our general manager spoke about the inland feeder, how it's connected with Diamond Valley Lake to move a lot of water very quickly into this lake. So this water is coming south of Silverwood into the inland feeder and then into the inland outlet tower that we see behind me.
How high is the water going to go? Right behind you, I can see the ridgeline. So how high do you want that water to go, and how long will it take?
So right now the reservoir is about 60% full. Roughly, the reservoir is about 250 feet deep in total. We're probably about 180 feet right now. So we got some room to go. This year, we're going to put water everywhere that we can. So we're filling as many reservoirs, groundwater, surface water reservoirs. We expect to see Diamond Valley Lake full at the end of this year at 800,000 acre feet.
Once it's full, how long is that water supply? Is that 1 year supply, 2 year supply?
Multiple years. Just to give some perspective, after the wet year that we had in 2019, so coming into 2020, coming into the 3-year drought, we were essentially full. So we were at about 800,000 acre feet, close to. Now we're about 60% full. So that's what we've drawn down, 40% of the reservoir in about 3 years.
What year did this project start?
Yeah, we started construction in the mid-90s. It finished construction in 2000. We started filling the reservoir, and it took about 3 years to fill the reservoir. Thank you.
All right. Any questions? We'll be available for anyone who wants to do interviews or questions afterwards. Thank you again for making the time and seeing this beautiful place. and also it's available. It's open to the public to come and enjoy nature. We have nature walks. We have a beautiful reserve that we take care of, and we have a nice marina for families and kids to enjoy. This is not just a water supply source, but it's also a natural resource that we love and appreciate. Thank you.